Welcome to the How Did They Do It Real Estate Podcast. Have you ever wondered how people succeed in real estate and what steps they took to get there? If so, this podcast is for you. Your hosts, Sayla and Eileen Prack, interview top experts in the real estate community to share with you their real estate journey and how they achieved massive success. Our goal is to provide you with valuable real estate resources and to help you apply it to your own real estate goal.
Thank you everyone for joining today's episode of How Did They Do It Real Estate Podcast. I am your host, Sayla Prack. I am today with honors have Vivian Yip joining me on the podcast today. So just a little bit about Vivian. Vivian is an ex-Apple iPhone program manager who started dabbling in the house flipping in 2018 as a side hustle with a dream to quit her corporate job and to live life on her own terms. Vivian is now sharing her vision on midterm rentals through Hestia Brand, a website of hand-picked quality whole home midterm rentals that connect hosts directly to guests on her website with no booking fee. So I'm very honored to have you on the show today, Vivian, and I'm very excited to learn more about your companies and your journeys along the way, and also wanted to learn more about the midterm rental. So Vivian, I know I give a short introduction, so I want to give these opportunities for you to tell our listener a little bit more about yourself and how did you get started with real estate to begin with?
Sure. Thank you, Sayla. That was a really nice introduction. So I have been investing in real estate since, 2004. I was 24 years old when I bought my first property in Toronto, and I house hacked that. I had a basement apartment that I rented out and I lived upstairs, and basically my housing cost was about $300 a month, but I was quickly interrupted with that plan to stay there for long term when I was relocated to Chicago with my job. Fast forward, in 2014, I had this amazing opportunity to relocate to the Austin area and work for Apple, which afforded me a wonderful career there. My last position there was a program manager. I launched the iPhone 12, and it was very difficult. It was during the pandemic. My kids were home. I was working from home. It was all sorts of crazy, between pilots not showing up because of COVID or warehouses shutting down, and trying to launch the iPhone, Apple's biggest product, was pretty stressful. But I made it through it. And eventually, over time, after flipping houses enough, we were able to afford to keep some of the properties and sort of accidentally fell into the midterm rental space.
So thank you so much, Vivian, for the introduction. And for someone who got such a really good careers and launching like Apple iPhone 12, basically changing the world, right? The product itself. What made you transitions to real estate? Like you mentioned about it, it's one of the most, it's very difficult position that you have with Apple as well. But what is it that actually making you switch? Is having such a great career?
Well, my parents were real estate investors as well. My mom and dad, they both had fairly humble jobs, but they focused on investing in real estate. Now my dad's 83 this year. My mom is 76, and they live a really good life, even though they weren't wealthy. But through the power of real estate investing, I can now see what the kind of life they're enjoying now. And I thought, well, that would be great if I could do that as well. But you have to start somewhere. So we started with a couple of long-term rentals, and then now we've evolved into the midterm rental space. And leaving Apple was always the goal, to leave corporate, but I left early when I lost all my hair from stress.
So thank you for sharing that. More like a really personal on that. Why did you lose your hair? You mentioned about stress. Can you elaborate a little bit more?
Sure. Well, stress happens to people in many different ways. For me, it was an autoimmune response. So I literally lost all my hair in about 8 to 10 weeks. Oh, wow. After every online meeting and all the stressful work that I was going through, my kids being really bad on the Zoom calls with their teachers and maybe even wasting their lives away in their electronics, a lot of mom guilt. Every day, I just lost more and more clumps of hair from the stress. And now I'm just completely bald. There's no hair. And I'm very grateful that I have all the experiences behind me that help me with my confidence to know that It's not my hair that made me who I am. It's all the things that I've done to make me happy that make me who I am.
So Vivian, you mentioned about you moving from long-term to mid-term rental. Can you give our listener a little bit more definition of what's the mid-term rental? Is it the same thing as a short-term rental, or how is that different from other different rentals?
Sure. Well, short-term rentals cater to vacation travelers. So your vacation traveler usually stays, maybe 2 nights to even a week, whereas a midterm rental is typically a 30-day stay. The main difference from a legislative perspective is that short-term rentals in many locations now especially have permitting requirements. But once you reach that 28 to 30-day threshold, it becomes a midterm stay, an MTR, and now you can bypass all those regulations. And so the clientele is also very different. So with short-term rentals, you're looking at vacationers again. But with midterm rentals, I would say my clients are typically people that are relocating. I've had people that have had their homes damaged by a fire or flood or whatnot, and they've had to relocate and find a new home temporarily while their home was being repaired. I've had people that are building a home and they don't have anywhere to stay, or they're just in some sort of transition. Sometimes they get traveling professionals, but mostly it's more of those corporate people.
So how difficult is it to find the tenants for the midterm rental comparing to short-term rentals or long-term rentals in your experience?
I think with midterm rentals, like real estate, I think the location matters a lot. So location. Austin's a great area because we do have such a booming economic playground, right? We have lots of tech companies. We have so many hospitals coming up, really great employers. So being in the urban area of Austin has been really great for me, as well as the people that are on my website, my marketing platform as well.
So Vivian, you mentioned that you accidentally going from long-term to midterm. How's that happen?
I realized that Austin is a very difficult place to cash flow. Even we have like one long-term rental in Round Rock, mm-hmm. and then we have another long-term rental in one half of a duplex. But as I continued to acquire properties in the last 5 years, I was like, there's no way I can cash flow in this market because property taxes are really high and the home values are rising so fast that the rent values weren't catching up. So I thought, well, why don't I just throw some furniture in them and see what happens? And so I started with a short-term rental in Round Rock in 2019. And then the pandemic hit. And then I was like, well, maybe let's just try a 30-day model and see if that works. And I ended up getting a 3-month rental, mm-hmm. and then a 7-month rental. Even though the revenues weren't as high as short-term rentals, I was still cash flowing, and it was so much less work. So then when I realized it worked in Round Rock, I was like, well, why can't it work in Austin? So I bought a duplex in Austin and I furnished one side, and that continuously got rented. And then when the other side moved out, I refinished that one, and both sides have been continuously rented. And I was like, okay, so let's get more. So now I have 6 midterm rentals, and it gives me the cash flow that I like. Obviously, it's not replacing my Apple income yet, but it's pretty close. And just find other ways to supplement it. But at the end of the day, I feel great that I own my own time, mm-hmm. and I don't have to report to anyone or ask anyone for time off. So it's great.
That's awesome. And so how many midterm rental do you have right now as of today?
We have 6.
You have 6 so far. And can you give some examples of in terms of the cash flow itself? You're saying that the long term is not really cash flowing, but midterm rental is not as cash flowing as a short term rental. How do you make that balance in between? And what are we looking at in terms of investment return?
My fast rule is usually about 2 times normal long-term rent. So if your normal long-term rent is $2,000, mm-hmm. then your midterm rental rate should be around $3,800 to $4,000 per month. So you have to factor in that you're paying for the utilities and maintenance as well, right? So mm-hmm. at the end of the day, though, you can still cash flow quite well, better than negative cash flow, right? Which is very typical in Austin. A lot of investors come here with a mindset of negative cash flow with positive appreciation.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, but however, my perspective is changing on that because now that I'm getting into more strategic partnerships with insurance companies, those contracts that come in can be very lucrative. So for instance, last week, I helped one of my clients that's on my website. She has a property in Round Rock. It's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, single family house. And she originally only wanted $3,500 for it per month as a furnished midterm rental. But when the insurance contract came in, I encouraged her to quote $4,750. So she ended up getting $4,750 for at least 2 months. And usually these contracts extend. Mm-hmm. So having those strategic partnerships with the insurance companies can be extremely lucrative.
Got it. I want to ask more about that questions, but I want to go back to the midterm rental a little bit, where you're talking about furnished midterm rental. So what are some of the essentials requirements for a midterm rentals property?
Yeah. So it's very clear to me that, midterm rental clients want to feel like they're actually home. So having a fully equipped kitchen is really important. Really great knives, great pots and pans. Unlike a vacation rental, many vacation rentals or short-term rentals don't even have a dresser for your clothes. So you want to make sure you have a dresser so people can fold their t-shirts and, gym clothes and whatnot. Another essential is really great beds. We at Hestia, we focus on the sleep experience. That's really important because when you're on a vacation and you get a crappy bed for the weekend, you don't really care. But if you're committing to a 30, 60, or 90-day stay, you want to make sure you have a great sleep experience. So that includes nice bedding, good pillows, good quality mattresses, blackout curtains, and maybe even a sound machine for some people.
Got it.
And then free parking is really important. And as well, number one is access to a washer and dryer. And, many of our hosts like to upgrade their internet as well to do ultra high-speed internet.
Got it. So I heard a couple of things that you mentioned. You have your own website, you have your own brand, Hestia. So I want to touch base in all those. So let's start with one of them, Hestia. So can you tell us a little bit more about your company?
Sure. So with my midterm rentals, I personally have a standard of quality. And I thought, with all these other midterm rentals out there, I wanted to differentiate my properties against all the other ones. So I picked the name Hestia because it is the Greek goddess of hospitality, hearth, and home. And as a young girl, I really liked Greek mythology and the goddesses. So I liked the name Hestia. And in the logo itself, I picked a lotus because the lotus is a bit Asian, which I'm Chinese. And it also looks like a crown. So I thought that kind of really did a nice representation of the modern looks that I like in our properties. And then over time, I realized that, as much as I would like to buy all the properties across Austin, I can't. So I developed a website where I can bring other people's website or other people's properties onto my website, and they can market their home as well if they meet the Hestia standard. So if you go on my website, which is corporaterentalsaustin.com, you'll see all these beautiful homes that are dedicated to midterm rentals. And it's a great place for people to easily find a midterm stay that meets a certain quality. And on top of that, their calendars are open for these kind of midterm stays. So if you look at like Airbnb, for instance, if you're trying to find a 30-day stay, it might be very difficult because the calendars are open so far in the future, and you'll have weekends booked and then weekdays not booked. And it's just difficult to find that continuous stay. So the hosts on my platform are dedicated to midterm stays. So you can find a lot of open calendars to book those longer stays.
That makes sense. So for your website, can you give us an example from a user's perspective? So, and then I will come back and ask you about the host perspective. From a user's perspective and experience, how that works for them? Is it more like Airbnb or how's that working for them?
Is it okay if I share my screen and just kind of
yes, definitely.
Okay,
definitely.
Let's do that then. So this is the landing page. And
beautiful.
You can see, add your arrival and departure dates. The user experience, most of the people that come on our website they're looking for a property either close to their home because they're renovating or they've been displaced due to an insurance reason, or maybe they're trying to find a property close to their work if they're relocating. So we organized it to find by zip code. And then if you go down the page, you can see all these beautifully hand-selected properties. And all of the hosts that are on our website already have a track record of hospitality. They all have Airbnb superhost status.
Got it.
Okay, so now you get to actually work directly with the hosts to book direct. So let's say this one, for instance, this one's in Central Austin. $159 a night is the starting price. You get a whole house for far cheaper than a hotel. And because you're doing the 30-day stay, you also avoid the hotel occupancy tax, right? So that's like 9% right there. And then so you can see, the type of home, the accommodations, number of bedrooms, number of baths. Most of our properties allow pets as well, because we know that at least here in Texas, our pets are an extension of our family. And I have 2 dogs myself. So if I'm relocating, I definitely need a place that allows pets. From a navigation perspective, all of our properties have a YouTube link, so you can do the actual walkthrough. And then you can choose your arrival and departure date. So this one, you can see that right now they're already got some stays booked. This one's a beautiful property. It's very popular. So April, they're open, but in May, it looks like they're starting to get booked. And then you can contact the host directly, either by email with this blue button, or you can even WhatsApp them with this green button. Mm-hmm. And, this is for the client. But if there's an insurance request, they would work directly with my company and my assistants, and we would match the requests for them. So anybody that's on our website, they get to take advantage of these lucrative contracts without paying any other commission to me. They just pay the one-time annual membership, and they get first right of refusal for these contracts. So all the pictures are pulled in from their description or from their listings on Airbnb, and we show a map to see how where it's located, what the general rules are, and that's it. I mean, it's pretty simple, beautiful website with lots of inventory to choose from.
Wow, that's a really beautiful website. And you mentioned, what about from the host standpoint? You mentioned that they pay the membership. Is that the only fee, or what some other fees that they should be expecting if they host it on your website or work with your company?
So we are a startup. We are trying to do a proof of concept here, and we're slowly making those, not slowly, we're quickly making way with corporate rentals. Austin.com website is super search engine optimization friendly. So we're already on page 1 of Google search engines. And then the hosts literally only pay me $499 for the year. And they get to be part of this website. We don't saturate the zip codes. Mm-hmm. So we only take up to 3 or 4 properties per zip code. That way we're only picking the nicest ones and that wants to be part of the Hestia team. And then they can also purchase a branding package. And the branding package, consists of like a cushion and some mugs and things like that they can decorate with their property. That way the client can feel related to the brand as they enjoy their stay for the 30 days that they're there.
Makes sense. And so you mentioned about the insurance process earlier. Can you elaborate a little bit more, possibly like insurance claim process, or how does that work?
Yeah, I'd love to. So say, for instance, if my home were to have an issue like a flood or fire, mm-hmm. I have 2 adults, 2 children, and 2 dogs. The first thing I would do is I would contact my insurance adjuster, and then the insurance adjuster would be like, well, the easiest place to put them is a hotel. But I don't know about you, but I don't want to be in a hotel for an extended amount of time, especially if it takes quite a bit of time to rebuild my home. So then the next thing they'll do is the adjuster puts you in a hotel, and then they'll put you in touch with the relocation specialist. And then the relocation specialist will try and find you either an apartment or a home. Currently, apartments are pretty easy to come by, but nothing against apartments, but I've been living in a single family home for quite some time now. Ideally, I would like to be in a single family home. So this is where my website comes in, because we are a niche website. we offer only single family homes and duplexes and townhouses. There's no apartments, no condos, so that now the relocation specialists at those insurance companies can easily find inventory to help fulfill the family's request. And those insurance contracts, they pay 3 to 4 times long-term rents. So it's very lucrative for an investor that wants to find a property that's going to cash flow and do the midterm rental model.
Got it. So it's someone who just wanted to start with the midterm models and haven't had done it in the past. And how can they start with that process? What is your recommendation?
Oh, well, my recommendation is that number one, my website does not solve all your occupancy and revenue. I would say that even for myself, 50% of my business comes in from Airbnb. So have a great listing. Make sure you're very descriptive, and you can even take advantage of AI tools, right? Like ChatGPT or OpenAI. Those are really great tools you can use to help you write a very good description for your Airbnb listing. Make sure you take professional photos. And once you get those reviews in and you are ready to be a super host, or you become a super host, then you can come and join on my website if you're in the Austin area. But stay tuned, because we're going to be expanding soon.
That's the next question I wanted to ask. Is your company just focusing on Austin right now, or do you have other pilot states that you're thinking about like moving forward to as well?
Yeah, we have definitely Houston and Dallas is on our radar. And then we have a few other cities that I'm going to keep quiet for now. We just want to really go deep into the market here in Austin, prove our concept before we go wide.
That makes sense. And Vivien, so what are you doing now? What are you doing today?
I am doing a lot of presentations to people to showcase my vision. My vision is to be the place to find whole home rentals in the midterm rental space, easily do business with, and work with professional hospitality real estate investors that want to provide exceptional service and a great experience for people that are in situations where they're relocating or displaced.
So Vivien, thank you so much for going over your brand, your journey in real estate, and also enlightening our listener about the midterm rental space. Is there any things that I haven't asked that you feel that our listeners should know?
Not really. I mean, they can contact me through LinkedIn if they'd like to. I love to connect with people. Networking is one of my greatest strengths. So if there's anything they have that I haven't answered here, they're welcome to reach out to me on LinkedIn, or they can reach out to me on social media and they can take a look at some of our walkthroughs of the properties. And for TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook, it would be at Corporate Rentals Austin. And if you would like to join in an interactive space, I have a Facebook group called Midterm Rental Wealth.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Vivien. I have only a couple of follow-up questions, possibly not related to the midterm rental itself, but how are you feeling once you left the corporate walls, and how has real estate investing impacting your life so far? You're talking about time freedom. How do you feel now?
I feel great. I love that I'm in full control of my time. I love that, when my children have field trips, that I can guilt-free go and volunteer and be a part of their experiences and watch the joy in their eyes when I walk into the room and they know that their parent is supporting them in whatever it is, like they could be having a Valentine's Day party or, having a field trip, and I can volunteer and I don't have to worry about someone else's dream. I get to focus on mine, and I get to control the time that I put into it. So real estate is really powerful. Yeah, you put in the right strategies in place, you can have financial and time freedom.
Thank you so much, Vivien. And finally, I know you don't have a crystal ball, and 2023 has been starting out a little bit rocky already in the real estate space. How do you feel about the real estate market itself, especially in 2023 and potentially for 2024?
Oh, that's a really good question. So I think Texas still remains very strong. I was at the Austin Chamber of Commerce Economic Outlook Luncheon back in November, and they said that Texas is actually currently the 9th economy in the world and poised to become number 8 really quickly. So in addition, the surplus of their budget is in the double-digit billions of dollars, which tells me that the government has a lot of decisions to make in the coming year on how to spend that budget, and probably through infrastructure and technology and all that kind of stuff. So from a money standpoint, our state is doing really great. But, we have some things to be concerned about as well. The banks failing. I'm not sure if that's just the tipping point that we're going to see more. It's hard to say, but I'm watching for it. I would say that I've definitely slowed down on the flips right now and just focusing on this subscription model, and to help other real estate investors like myself cash flow in traditionally non-cash flowing markets.
And finally, so you mentioned about cash flow. The word cash flow is that actually brought up another question, was if you have any advices for the investor, like a real estate investor today, like to be successful, what could that be?
Don't be a motivated buyer, right? I mean, look for the deals, but don't try to overbid or overpay for properties. Look at the numbers carefully and, make the right choice. And, there's plenty of people in the real estate space that are super helpful, that love to help others look at deals. And I think the reason why we've been doing well in real estate is because we were always very careful about how we bought.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. I know. So if you don't mind, can you tell our listener a little bit more, one more time, if our listener wanted to find out more about you and reaching out to you? You already mentioned earlier, but if you don't mind, can you mention it one more time?
Sure. You can find me on LinkedIn under Vivian Yip. And then I have a Facebook group to learn more about midterm rentals. And that Facebook group is Midterm Rental Wealth with Vivian Yip. And you can follow all my Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook Reels at Corporate Rentals Austin.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Vivien, for your time.
Thanks, Selah. It was nice to be in touch with you. And thank you for having me on your podcast.
Thank you.
And thank you for listening to our podcast today, brought to you by Bonavest Capital. We would really appreciate it if you can go to iTunes right now and leave a rating and written review. Also, please don't forget to subscribe so you can always get the latest episodes. You can also connect with us on Facebook, How Did They Do It Real Estate. We'd love to hear your feedback and any topics that you're interested in for future episodes. Lastly, to learn more about us, you can go to bonavestcapital.com and fill out the Contact Us page so you can speak to us directly. Nothing on the show should be considered as specific personal advice. Please consult your legal, tax, and real estate professionals for individualized advice.